we need to talk about what is a calling. We don't want to assume that we know what we're talking about. Romans 8:28 puts it this way, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. To have a Christian calling means to understand that we live according to God's purposes in our lives. In fact, I put it this way. A Christian calling is God's invitation to his purpose for your life. God's invitation to his purpose for your life. It's an invitation, right? God doesn't impose these things on us. He doesn't force us into them, but it's a call. It's an invitation that we can participate in what God wants to do in us and through us and around us. And oftentimes we break that into two subcategories. We have a common calling that we all share, and then sometimes we talk about a specific calling upon an individual's life. And I would express our common calling in this way. We are commonly called as Christians to be adopted. We are called to be adopted as sons and daughters of God. That means we're to be the objects of God's love. I don't know if you've ever thought about that as your calling as a Christian, to be the recipient on the receiving end of God's love. How are you doing at receiving his love in your life? Did you realize that's your calling this morning? Romans 8 and 9 really unpack what that means to be adopted as his children. I invite you to pour into that a little bit more at another time. Another aspect of that common calling is that we're called to be ambassadors. So we're not just called to be objects of God's love, but we're also called to be bearers of God's love to other people. 2 Corinthians 5:20 talks about how we're to be ambassadors, letting the world know about God's desire for reconciliation with humanity. Do you see how that talks about how God's love wants to reach to all people? He wants to reconcile the world to himself. So we're objects of God's love, but we're also bearers of God's love. That's our common calling, to receive it and to give it. Are you with me? Okay. What's our specific calling? Simply this: where and how you live out your ambassadorship. It's who the people are that you're engaging with, expressing God's love to them, and in your own unique wiring and gifting, the way that God's crafted you. That's all we mean by our specific calling. But we're all called as believers